So I have in my hands here what I think is a fantastic tool to use if you are struggling with your short game. This wedge allows a visual representation of how to set up on certain short game shots with a visual reference. And to be honest, it's really simple and really good. It almost feels a little bit like cheating. So I'll talk you through what these setup lines actually mean, but if you aren't lucky enough to get your hands on one of these wedges, I'll explain how you can apply it to the clubs that you do have for more successful short game shots. Guys, if you are new to the Swing Quest channel or you have watched the videos but have yet to subscribe, please do so now. It will be fantastic to grow this channel as we push it towards 100,000 subscribers. So the lines on the hosel of the club are fairly simple. If I open up this club face, just notice how the furthest left line is pointing up towards where my nose would be. So this means that the shaft is very upright and it's a great setup for a flop shot, or if you're out on the course, a bunker shot. The middle line when pointing straight up is a perfect angle for a little mid-flighted pitch shot. The back line when that's pointing straight up, that is for chips and lower flighted pitches. And it's this angle which is based on some of the very best short game exponents in the world, Jordan Spieth, for example. Now, these lines are for generalized setups, but it does speak to a common problem that many golfers find within their game, and that is a consistent setup over all shots, not just short game shots, but in this instance, we're talking around the green. It is difficult because many clubs, unlike this one, don't have those visual clues to actually line you up consistently. And if you are a golfer of any length of time, you will understand that what you feel you're doing isn't often related in any way to what you're really doing. So let's actually test this club out with a little bit of data on the GC quad. I mean, obviously we're not outside, we are inside, so such things as the flop shot might be a little bit difficult to replicate. But we'll also talk about how you can get yourself set up to these shots, again, just in case you don't have visual clues on your club like this. So first up, the flop shot or the bunk shot if you're in a bunker. So I'm going to open up the club face and I'm going to get that first line pointing up at my nose. But also, if you want a visual clue here, you can just use the shaft. This shaft is pointing straight up at my belt buckle. So that's a very easy visual reference for you to use. I've laid the club open and I could basically balance a glass of water on it. I'm going to put the ball position towards the front of my stance, but also open my stance a little bit so it's pointing to the left-hand side. That's because as I move through the ball, I want to hinge my wrists upwards, try and get this shaft back to pretty much the same angle as it was at address, pointing up at my belt buckle with the end of the shaft or the line on the hosel pointing up at my nose, and then whip it underneath the ball for maximum loft. Now, the only difference between this and a bunker shot is you'd be wanting to impact the sand a little bit more before the ball. So if I open up the club face, pointing straight up, a little bit of weight left, hinge those wrists, pop it underneath. Wow, I mean, we're on a mat, but that came out really nice. One good thing about having a relatively new wedge is you can see where the ball is impacted. As a club face becomes open like this, the impacts are more likely to be off the toe. So if you do see that when you're hitting a flop shot, don't worry. I'm not just saying that to cover my own back, that is the truth. So we'll move on to this second line and the mid pitch. So with this setup, the second line, the one in the middle of the hosel, again, we want that pointing straight forward. Now you can see that this has lent the shaft a little bit more towards the target, and now the butt end of the club is pointing up pretty much just inside my left pocket. So again, if you are looking for a visual reference with your clubs, this is a great way to go. Now we want a little bit of shaft lean here towards the target, but we don't want to push that handle miles ahead. That's why I think this is a really good tool to use if you're practicing these kind of shots. Setup wise, we're going to keep the ball position quite central, and we're just going to lean a little bit of weight onto that left side just to encourage a slightly descending angle of attack. This is a great tool for me to use as well because I do tend to lean that handle miles ahead of the ball. So I'm just going to get that middle line pointing up, and I'm going to try and return it to that point of impact. So we've got 40 yards here. Oh, wow, that we have new wedge spin right now. For a short pitch shot like this, I don't really like to see loads of wrist hinge. When you hinge your wrist upwards in this manner, you have to then uncock them coming through impact, and that adds speed. With this type of length of shots, this is only 40 yards, I want to see those wrists stay a little bit firmer. They can give a touch, obviously, but I much more prefer a nice takeaway, the arms and the body moving as one, so we can then move them through the ball as one. Now onto this back line, it's an interesting one because you can use this for chipping or a lower flighted pitch shot. So I'll stick to the same target, I'll use a very similar setup, but I'm just going to get that back line again pointing up towards my nose. Let's see if there's a difference in the flight. So as that handle moves forward towards the target, what we're doing is we're knocking loft off the golf club. So whereas the handle moving back would expose the maximum amount of loft, moving the handle forward, that decreases the loft and therefore should decrease that launch. Setter-wise on this shot as well, if I move the ball position slightly further back, pretty much everything else is the same, that touch of weight forward, get that back line pointing straight up, that should launch the ball even lower. As mentioned, this club has been measured by using examples of the best players in the world like Spieth, like Fowler, fantastic short game exponents. And it is great to have something on the club like this that you can actively look at and measure against your setup. For me, it's very, very useful because I have this tendency to get my hands so far ahead of the ball. But of course, what matters is what you think. So hopefully you found those setups useful, even if you don't use a club like this. Get down to those comments below, let us know, and make sure you follow on with another Swing Quest video right here.